Welcome to Forthright, the podcast with, for and by women writers.
We have some brilliant guest writers lined up for you this season, covering a wide range of genres and experience.
We hope you enjoy it. Hello and welcome to the Forthright podcast. I'm Anna.
And I'm Sam, and we're really excited today to have Lola Jaye with us. Hi, Lola.
Hiya.
So, Lola Jaye is a critically acclaimed author, registered psychotherapist and speaker who has penned 6 novels and a self-help book. She was born and raised in London and has lived in Nigeria and the United States. She's written for CNN, Essence, HuffPost and the BBC. She is passionate about mental health and has appeared on national television where she's spoken about depression and trauma. The Attic Child is her first epic historical novel and was published in 2022. It has since been nominated for the Jhalak Prize and the Diverse Book Awards. Lola has a keen interest in history and bringing untold stories to life.
And today we're really excited because she's going to be reading from The Attic Child. So I'm just going to read the blurb and then hand over to Lola. So, 2 children trapped in the same attic, almost a century apart, bound by a secret. 1907. 12-year-old Celestine spends most of his time locked in an attic room of a large house by the sea. Taken from his homeland and treated as an unpaid servant, he dreams of his family in Africa, even if, as the years passed, he struggles to remember his mother's face and sometimes his real name. Decades later, Laura, a young orphan girl born into wealth and privilege, will find herself banished in the same attic. Lying underneath the floorboards of the room is an old porcelain doll, an unusual beaded claw necklace and, most curiously, a sentence etched on the wall behind an old cupboard, written in an unidentifiable language. Artifacts that will offer her a strange kind of comfort and lead her to believe that she was not the first child to be imprisoned there. Oh my goodness. Okay, so Lola, if we can hand over to you, and if you could just say at what point in the book you're going to be reading.
Okay, I'm going to be reading from The Attic Child, and it's kind of quarter way in the book, and we're at 1906, and Dikembe, one of the main characters, is a 12-year-old boy from Africa, and he's now in an English school. So I'm just going to read a scene from that, his first day at school. Start with your name. I thought for a moment, feeling the weight of expectations from my classmates and Mr. Prentice, the teacher. Speak up, boy. My name is Dikem. What? My name, sir, is... Speak up. Celestine, sir. I swallowed and looked around at the expectant faces of the boys I'd met for the first time that day. I closed my eyes quickly and then opened them again. This was not the moment I had imagined it to be. My name is Celestine. Celestine what? I looked towards him as if I hadn't understood any of his English. I did, of course. I asked you for your surname. I could hear and feel the collection of sniggers. When I closed my eyes again, I could see my father. My name is Celestine. The teacher moved closer to me, his eyes narrowing. According to signed documents which secured your enrollment with us, your name is now Celestine Babington, or am I mistaken? No, sir, I said, my gaze reaching to the floor. Look at me when I speak to you, boy, he roared, and the entire classroom of boys fell silent. I felt exposed, naked. Your name, I could feel his breath on my nose, is Celestine Babington, he said. I nodded my head without sincerity. Say it! I am Celestine Babington, and I am from Africa. Incorrect. Your life is here now, and you must reflect this in your opening statement. Begin again. I swallowed. My name is Celestine Babington, and I am from this great land that is Britain. Mr. Prentice stood back and nodded approvingly. But of course you are. It doesn't matter where you may have started. This is where you now live. And it is a land that has given you many opportunities, one of which is attending one of the most prestigious schools in the country. You may be seated. The couple of guffaws I heard behind me did not faze me as much as what I had just been complicit in. to deny my entire existence up to my current age, to deny my own father, my family, my country, and to realize just how easy it was becoming to do so. I felt a stench of nausea in my stomach.
So I was just absolutely like caught in the scene.
Oh, right.
I'm reading Attic Child at the moment, and I was desperately trying to get through to read the whole thing by the time we were speaking, but I've got about 100 pages to go. But it's such an incredible book.
Thank you.
So understand that the inspiration behind the Attic Child came from when you visited the National Portrait Gallery. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes, there was an exhibition in 2016, and it was focusing on Victorian era, but Black people in that time. Now, growing up in this country, I'd always been led to believe that, Black people arrived here during Windrush. And obviously, that's not true. Black people were here during the Tudor times and long before. So when I saw this advertised, I knew I had to go. So I went along with a friend, had a look at the pictures and the photographs, and there was one in particular of a little boy. And I know they say that eyes follow you around the room when you look at photographs and pictures, but it was more than that. It was something in my heart. It just, I don't know, I just kept going back to him and ignoring all the other photographs. So I knew I wanted to write about this person. So I quickly did a Google search when I got home, and unfortunately I found out that his name was Ndugu Mahali, and he died at the age of 12.
Oh, gosh.
So there's not really much to write about because, he died at 12. So I kind of set myself this kind of challenge. What could have happened if he had been allowed to live? That was my title. And I just started writing, but then I stopped because it wasn't the right time. I had 2 books under contract for a publisher that wasn't that. I was discouraged from going on, and I listened to that, so I left it. I left it alone, and it just lay in my computer.
And so, what made you decide to pick it up again?
Well, I had signed the contract for another book at the time, and I'd written that, and it was all set to go, and then there was just this voice in my head telling me, it's time. And it was almost like it was a little boy's voice, and Ndugu Mahali saying, it's time now, there's no more messing around. Yeah. But it was also like, I've just signed a contract, I'm legally bound to write another book. So I decided to walk away from that and, pitch to a new publisher. And I didn't even write a word. I literally just pitched the idea and a few sample chapters. And it was, good to go. I say this so easily right now, but at the time, I had that book that I'd already signed a contract for. There was another book that was being pitched that three publishers wanted. I walked away from all of it for this.
So really brave and nerve-wracking thing to do.
It must have been hugely scary as well, but also to just have such faith in the fact that you knew this is a story that you wanted to tell at that point, and have to really follow a really strong gut instinct with it as well.
Absolutely. And I don't want to sound as brave as I am sounding right now, because you know what? I found, a publisher that was really, really passionate about it. But if I hadn't, who knows what would have happened. But I'm just so thankful that I did. And so we wrote the proposal together. And then, 2020 was happening. And it just seemed like art was imitating life, literally, in that moment when I was writing. So everything was aligning, if that makes sense.
Yes. And so, obviously, in the book, there are it covers really challenging themes, and it must have been really painful for you to kind of be researching and writing around some of this stuff. So, how did you kind of look after yourself through that process? I mean, obviously, as you're a psychotherapist, you're probably quite, used to mental health things, as we talked about before. But so how do you take care of yourself?
Well, if we talk about this particular book, it was so unique because remember when I said that art was imitating life? It was 2020 when I was writing this book. And basically, obviously, we were told not to leave our homes, and I actually adhered to that. So I was in my home, not being able to leave. Just I think we were allowed 1 hour of exercise or whatever. So I was writing this book about 2 children locked in an attic. Yes, I wasn't locked up, but I was kind of not allowed to go out. So that was very similar. Also, I was watching the TV and these statues were being, pulled down about these explorers. And I was literally writing about an explorer. And fun fact, the person who this is kind of loosely based on, the explorer, his statue was actually allowed to stay in Denbigh, Wales. Yeah, I'm not going to say his name, but his statue's allowed to stay, and they had a huge vote on it. So all this is happening. Also, I've got to research the horrific crimes against these people of the Congo that was caused by King Leopold and his ilk. So I kind of sanitized it in the book. What I witnessed and what I saw was so much worse than what I put into the book. And I kind of trust the readers, which they have done. They'll just go off and educate themselves on what happened. And it's horrific. And I was looking at pictures of, children with no limbs and just so much more. So your question about how do I look after myself, it was difficult in the space of that time. We weren't really allowed to see our friends. But, you find ways. I'm a good believer in finding the joy in the smallest things. So if I do go out for my walk in the park, I'm so happy that the sun is shining. I take time away from the computer. If it's too much, I'm not going to do any writing that day, and that's it. And just the things that we were all doing really to cope during that time of early lockdown, I was doing, but maybe a bit more. But yeah, I'm a great believer in self-care. Yeah. So those things didn't stop. I just had to adapt it in a different way because of the current climate.
I think particularly kind of the part of the narrative where it is sort of deep into the atrocities that are happening, because as the reader, we're getting that through Dikembe's through his filter, and he's not really aware of it. So I think there's kind of a little bit of distance from it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really that must have been really interesting as well, because doing your characters at different ages throughout the story. So did you did you kind of have an idea beforehand which bit of the stories would be told by, whether it was the kind of the children or as them as adults?
And also with that as well, did you switch from writing one character to another as you were writing the novel, or do you have to write in one linear form and then another? How do you get your head into the two different spaces?
Right, this particular book was really unique. It's more unique than the way I'm writing the new book now, which again is two characters. I'm just doing them very ad hoc. But with The Attic Child, I literally wrote all of Dikembe's first, and then I wrote Laura, and then I just fit them together like a puzzle. And that's what I mean when I tell you that everything was aligned. The time of what was happening was aligned, and also just how that fitted so easily. That does not happen with my writing. I'm usually all over the place. But this was very, very clean. And it was literally a jigsaw that fit. Every space, every piece fit. But yeah, I had to get his story out first, because his was a story that's been sitting there since 2016. And it was easy. It just flowed. It just flowed out. I didn't plan. I just knew that, okay, I don't want to give too much away because I know you haven't read it, and people may not have read it finished yet. But I knew that I wanted his life to look a certain way, but I just didn't know how I was going to get there. I always write the ending first, anyway.
Dear,
so
that's interesting.
Yeah, I'm not going to tell you the ending, obviously, but yeah, I write the ending, so I know where I'm going. I just don't know how I'm going to get there, and I don't know how many turns I'm going to take, or how many times the car is going to break down on the way.
Yeah.
I just don't know.
I really like that analogy.
And with writing at all, really, how do you make the balance between being a writer and being able to negotiate the other parts of your life as well? What does your day look like as a writer, and how do you find the time, and how do you protect that time?
I think this kind of ties in with your question about how do you kind of, take care of yourself while you're writing, because as a therapist, that's also trauma-inducing as well, because you're dealing with trauma on a daily basis. And so I feel that the writing kind of lets me get everything out, because my books are quite dark. Yeah. They're joyful, but they're also quite dark. So it's about me letting out certain aspects of myself. So as a therapist, I don't like to call it the day job. I feel that they're both equal. They both give me an equal amount of joy. and they both sustain me equally financially. So I just kind of split them up, really. There's a way of doing that. When I don't have writer's block, when I'm really raring to go, I can do it. If I have writer's block, or I don't really like the term writer's block, but if I just not in the mood for writing, there is no time in the world to do the writing. That makes sense.
Yeah.
You'll find time is the common thing here. You'll find time, or you won't.
Yes, yeah, I do. And yes, I feel like when you're talking about with the Attic Child, that when the stories were when it was flowing through and out of you, there is there'll always be the time to write the story that is just kind of like burning to be told. But yeah, it's that point where you sit down, you can't find the words. You might, you could have weeks or months, and it doesn't really make any difference, does it? So you say you're writing something at the moment. Are you? Could you tell us a bit about that? Are you able to share anything about the novel you're writing at the moment?
Well, there's a novel coming out. This makes me sound like a writing machine, but I've actually got a novel coming out in February that's all done. We're just briefing the cover at the moment.
Oh, wonderful!
And it's called The Manual for Good Wives.
The Manual for Good Wives.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Yeah, it's set in 1862 and present day. It jumps.
Yeah.
So so it is basically about marriage and women and how we're seen and how we're expected to be. And the two protagonists, obviously they're living in different centuries, but how different really is their life when it comes to relationships? So the woman in 2025, she has a relationship with somebody who's quite controlling and so forth, but the woman in 1862, he can be controlling, but he's allowed to be by law because women are more property in those days. So it's a story based on these two women that are living almost parallel lives, but, different parts of history.
And do you, obviously you're writing in lots of different time periods. Do you have to do a lot of research, I'm guessing? And do you kind of immerse yourself in the time period before you start writing, or do you kind of write and then retrofit historical details?
Yeah, I mean, what I do, I don't I don't research or anything before, because I feel that I don't need any excuses to not write this novel. So if I say I'm going to do all this research first, I will not write a thing. So I actually research as I'm going along. Yeah. But what I do when I'm in that space, I watch a lot of TV. I love TV, I've got to say. I know it's not really good for a writer to say that, but I love it. And what I do with the Manual for Good Wives, because it was set in 1862 and it goes towards the Edwardian period, I was watching The Gilded Edge, which is brilliant. I don't know if you've watched that before. It's setting that time, and it's a costume drama. It's a bit like Bridgerton, but just less fanciful. So I watched that, and so that kind of, it reminds me of how they spoke in those days. Or I may listen to an audio book that is set in that time, because the wordage is so different and the clothing they wear is so beautiful. So I can look at the clothes. I went to the Victorian Albert Museum and I looked at clothes from that era. So I do little things like that to kind of immerse myself in it as much as possible. But it's not easy writing, obviously, the 100 years ago, 200 years ago part of it, because you may write, oh, she pulled her curtains. And then you've got to Google whether there was curtains in that time. It really slows you down. Whereas the 2025 section, you're literally living that time. You don't have to do any research at all. It's wonderful. So, yeah.
And so with The Attic Child, you talked about the inspiration being from a painting. With the Manual for Good Wives, where did the thought come from that? Or how do your ideas for your books come to you at any point, or do you think, right, the next one is going to be a dual timeline historical novel, and I have a framework about what I want to do beforehand? How do your stories come to you in the first place?
Yeah, The Attic Child definitely was unique with the photographs. That hadn't really happened to me before, but I just know that I love writing about the past. So because the photograph affected me so much, I kind of felt about, I need to replicate this. This is going to happen again. So I saw this painting called The Reluctant Bride, and it was this woman in 1700 and something in England, and she's just standing there, and all these people, the bridal party, are sorting out her dress. And she's standing there, she looks utterly miserable. And I thought, this woman does not want to get married. But because it's the 1800s, she's probably got no choice. So then I thought, and that was started to germinate. The seed started to germinate in my mind. Yeah, and so that I always grew up with this story of my grandmother who was forced to marry as a teenager to a tribal chief in Nigeria many, many years ago. And I grew up with that story and I thought, oh my gosh, this actually happened in my own story where she was forced to get married. So then I had a story. I had a reluctant bride. So I had my grandmother and, who's forced to marry this man, but then she fell in love with somebody else and she wasn't allowed to be with him, like Romeo and Juliet. Yeah. That's it. I'm going to base the first part of this story on my grandmother. So I interviewed my uncle, who's like past 80 years old, my auntie, and they told me all these stories. And I had a story, and that was it. That's how that happened.
That's fantastic that that you can kind of have the inspiration, but also then mine your family for the inside information.
Exactly. So yeah, there's a lot, and I'm definitely going to credit my grandmother, who I never met. She was long dead before I was born. But just to kind of make my grandmother and my grandfather, it was definitely the inspiration of being forced to marry. And lots of women are in marriages these days, and really not being forced to get married, but they're there for certain reasons and they can't get out. So I kind of really wanted to kind of home in on that one.
And with the Manual for Good Wives, did you write the ending first with that book as well?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I might have tweaked it a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely knew what was going to happen. Yeah, definitely. I wrote that there.
Oh, I love that idea of like having your end goal in sight and then kind of weaving your way towards it. That feels very reassuring.
Yeah, I just need to know where I'm going. If I have that, then I'm good. Yeah.
It's so interesting because I think we speak to a lot of writers who sort of say they have the idea, but they don't know where it's going, and they're writing to find out. So it's a really completely different way of doing it to start with the ending.
And it also feels like when we talk to people who are planners and those that are pantsers, or the kind of gardener and architect kind of analogy, you sound, Lola, like you're a culmination of both. So you planned your ending, but you're also kind of you're learning how you get to that point as well. So I think that feels like a really kind of inspiring amalgamation of both.
Yeah, I didn't think of it that way, for sure. Yeah, it's exciting because it's exciting for me. I don't know where this is going. So it's almost like I'm a reader. Yeah. Like, where is this going? It's so nice.
So, I guess maybe there isn't an answer to this because when we were saying earlier about how you fit your writing into your day, and you said that some days you just don't make yourself. But so if you're on a deadline, for example, and you really have to get the writing done, do you have a trick for reigniting your inspiration if you're feeling blocked?
I think my inspiration is I have a deadline.
Yeah. Yes.
I think that's literally that's going to do it for me. Because I think with writing, it's such a unique experience. Sometimes you can be writing a manuscript and you haven't even got a buyer for it. I've done many of those. There's no buyer for it. You're literally going to send it out on spec. So there's not much motivation. It's like, oh, well, it's not. But if someone has actually paid you money for it or says, can we see it? That's my inspiration.
Yeah.
Or I remember this year I was going away to Mexico for my birthday. I knew I had to get these edits in before I go to Mexico. My agent didn't say I had to, but I imposed that on myself because I want to enjoy my holiday. I don't want to be thinking about edits. So just self-imposed, or a reward system is pretty good. Yeah. You finish these edits, you get to do X. I'm a child.
I think we all need that, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think everybody needs a carrot, don't they, to kind of get them over the finishing line. You said now with writing and with that there's an equal balance in terms of not just kind of time, but also kind of financial value between the different parts of your kind of working life. But at what point did you decide that you wanted to be a writer? It was have you always wanted to write, or how did that? Yeah,
I'm literally doing what I said I was going to do as a kid. So as a kid, I wanted to be a therapist because I wanted to be Michael Jackson's only therapist and charge him £1,000 an hour. So as a kid, that was my aim. And I also was writing stories as well. I thought, okay, I want to write as well. So literally, I knew I was going to do the whole studying thing, do a master's, become a therapist, because you've got to have a backup plan. And also, I knew I wanted to do it. So as soon as I finished my thesis, it was 25,000 words. I thought, wow, I've just written 25,000 words. Maybe I could write a book now. Maybe it's time. Yeah. So as soon as I handed that in, I started scribbling more seriously now and sending stuff off, which was quite nerve-wracking. And Lisa Jewell was the first person I sent some chapters to that was, because I'm very private with my work, but she was just a very up-and-coming writer then. And she was so lovely. She said, you can really write. Carry on. I'm like, oh, okay. Maybe I've got something here. And then that's it. The rest is history.
Oh, how brilliant. And has she read your kind of published books now, do you know?
She always gives blurbs. She does. She does always give a blurb. Bless her. She does. Yeah, she's really sweet. And I've met her now a few times. And, she was the first person. I just was I didn't want to give it to anyone in my family because I was embarrassed. I don't know if it's any good. And I'm still quite a private writer even now. My friends don't see any of it until it's published. I don't like people seeing it. I don't know. It's a really weird thing. It feels like it's unfinished.
Yeah. And so do you have a writing group? Because a lot of people that we speak to, they meet with other writers and share. So you don't do any of that?
None of that. I'm such a private writer. When I meet other writers, we're going to eat. That's it. We're just going to eat. I can't do that. I don't know. I've always done it. And a lot of my writing friends, they do have these groups and they love it. But no, I don't know why. It just feels, I just want to get on with it. I'm going to go there and talk about it. I'm taking a few hours away from actually writing. I'd rather spend those 2 hours eating.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah. But I guess it sounds like you're really self-contained with your writing, and you're kind of you're confident in it, and so it's not for you that there's not a value in that, the sharing of work.
No, and also I got a good agent that will look over it and we'll go over some edits together and get it into ship shape. So I'm confident in that, I suppose. And I'm a bit of an introvert. I'm an introvert and I'm an extrovert. But when it comes to my writing, I think you've got to be an introvert to some extent because you're sitting in a room by yourself writing something that nobody's seen. You haven't even sold it. So you're insane. You're slightly introverted. You're slightly extroverted because you've got to be to try and sell the thing. So in that case, I'm very insular. I'm in my own world, very much so.
So for some of our listeners to the podcast, they will be new to writing or will be interested in becoming writers themselves. Just wonder, what piece of advice would you have to somebody who is starting out on their writing career, or similarly, the advice that you would have given to yourself at the very beginning?
Oh, read a lot. Yeah. Someone once told me, someone who wanted to write said that, I don't read books, and I've never been felt so disgusted. And so, please read, but read not only the genre that you want to write in, which is obviously important. So if you're going to write a rom-com, then read as many rom-coms as you can, both in print format and audio as well, just to see the differences. But also read other genres, whether it be historical fiction, something that's close to that genre. You might not like, science fiction, okay, but read something else that's out of the genre as well. So just read as much as you can. If you're looking to break into the business, I mean, I'm not going to tell you my age, but it's a long time ago that I, got published, and there was no Instagram and Twitter then, but now there is. So I feel that with Twitter, definitely, not Instagram as much, but Twitter, if you find an agent that you like, so let me start that again. There's the Writers and Artists Yearbook. Yeah. It comes out every year. Buy that, but you have to buy it every year because people change agencies. So that's something you should have as a staple. Also, if you have a writer whose book you've read that's in the genre that you want to write, so if you've taken my advice about reading the same genre, Jane Doe has written a book. That's like my book. Yeah. Look at the acknowledgements and then you'll see who she thanks. Chances are she'll thank her agent, or you can find out who her agent is with a quick search online. And then you've got that agent's name, look in the in their yearbook, get their details, or go online, get their email. That's one thing. But what I would do also is look on their Twitter handle, because they usually tell you when they're open to submissions. And I've seen quite a lot of people pitch live on Twitter. It's amazing. So that's something you could use. Also with the email, obviously send them an email. Obviously don't just send it. Send an email first. Don't just send a whole manuscript. Send an email. It's always going to be 3 chapters and an introduction. But I would go down that route. In this day and age when we've got this technology, Twitter is great.
Yeah.
A lot of them they'll even say, I'm going to be open to submissions, such and such time. You can pitch to me live on Twitter this Thursday between 3 and 4. I've seen that.
Yeah. So, so I guess this leads to my final question. You've talked about Twitter and Instagram. If our listeners want to find you on your socials, how would they find you, Lola?
Yep, so it's my name, Lola Jaye, on both. I think the Instagram is Lola_Jaye, but I don't deviate. My name is there somewhere. Yeah. So they can find me on Twitter, Instagram. I'm that old that I still have a Facebook. So you can find me there as well. And I also have a website, www.lolajaye.com.
Brilliant.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
And I'm just going to kind of get off the call and go and finish reading the last bit of the story so I can get to this.
Well, let me know what you think.
I will. I mean, I've loved it so much, up to this point. But yeah.
And we'll keep our eyes peeled for the Manual for Good Wives as well. So thank you so much, Lola.
February 25. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Forthright podcast.
Check out our website, forthright.uk, for further writing resources.